Imagine this, you're sitting in a cafe sipping coffee, when suddenly a woman is being dragged out by a furious man. Everyone just stares frozen. Then a quiet single dad stands up, places his hand firmly on the man's shoulder and says, "Touch my wife again and you'll regret it." What happens next will shake your heart. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that touch your soul. The cafe was buzzing with the usual late afternoon chatter. Students bent over laptops, couples sharing desserts, and office workers grabbing their last coffee fix before heading home. But in one corner sat a young woman with trembling hands wrapped around a ceramic cup, her eyes darting toward the door every few seconds, as if she was waiting for someone she desperately wished would never come. And then, just as she closed her eyes for one brief moment of peace, the door slammed open and a man stormed in, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes burning in anger, his voice cutting through the air like a whip as he shouted her name, and suddenly all the warmth of the cafe turned to ice. She froze, and before anyone could react, the man marched straight to her table, grabbing her wrist with a force that made her cup tumble and shatter on the floor, coffee splashing across the tiles. Gasps erupted around the room, but no one moved. People only whispered, "What's going on?" as the man yanked her up from her chair and hissed through clenched teeth, "You thought you could run away from me, you thought you could hide." She whimpered, trying to pull free, whispering, "Please, not here, let me go." But her pleas only made him tighten his grip and begin dragging her toward the exit, his anger boiling over as though the world around them didn't exist, as though she were just a possession being taken back. Some people turned their faces away. Others pulled out their phones, recording instead of intervening, because in moments like these, fear and hesitation often outweigh courage. But at the very back of the cafe sat a man no one paid attention to, a single father named Daniel who came here every day after work with his little daughter Emma, a bright-eyed 6-year-old who loved chocolate muffins more than anything, and today was no different. Except that as Emma munched happily and swung her legs, Daniel's eyes, sharp and protective, caught the scene unfolding near the door, and in that instant something inside him stirred, something that came from years of protecting his daughter from a world that wasn't always kind. He watched the woman's face, saw the tears brimming, the silent plea for help that no one else seemed willing to answer, and when the man shoved past a chair, knocking it to the ground, Emma tugged on her father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, that man is hurting her, why is no one helping?" And those innocent words pierced him like a blade, leaving him with no choice. He stood, calm yet unshakable, the kind of calm that comes not from weakness but from strength deeply rooted in love and responsibility. And as the man reached the door, Daniel's voice cut through the air, low and firm, "Let her go." The cafe fell silent instantly. Forks hovered in midair and eyes turned as Daniel walked forward, his tall frame carrying the quiet authority of a man who had endured life's storms. The aggressor spun around, glaring, and spat, "This is none of your business." But Daniel didn't flinch. He kept walking until he stood only a step away, his gaze locked on the man's hand clutching the woman's arm, and in a voice that held both steel and fire he said, "Touch my wife again and you'll regret it." The words hung in the air like thunder, shocking not only the aggressor but the woman herself, who widened her eyes in disbelief because she had never seen this man before, and yet here he was, claiming her as his own in order to shield her. The aggressor sneered, "Your wife? Don't lie to me." But Daniel stepped closer, placing himself squarely between the woman and her tormentor, his chest rising and falling steadily as he replied, "I don't repeat myself, she's with me, and if you don't let go now, you'll find out exactly how much of a mistake you've made." There was no shouting, no wild gestures, only the unshakable conviction of a father who had vowed never to let anyone harm someone in front of his child, and that conviction radiated so strongly that for the first time the aggressor hesitated. Murmurs rippled through the cafe, some whispering in awe, others reaching for their phones, but all eyes were on Daniel, who didn't even blink. Finally, with a curse under his breath, the man shoved the woman's arm away and stormed out, the door slamming so hard behind him that the glass rattled, leaving behind a silence heavy with shock and relief. The woman staggered, nearly falling, but Daniel reached out, steadying her gently, asking softly, "Are you all right?" And though her lips trembled, she managed to nod, tears slipping down her cheeks. Emma, still at the table, clutched her muffin tightly, watching with wide eyes, not fully understanding, but sensing that something important had just happened, something brave. Daniel guided the woman back to his table, offering her a seat and a glass of water while whispers continued all around them, strangers realizing they had just witnessed a moment of unexpected heroism. The woman finally spoke, her voice barely audible. Why did you say that I was your wife?" And Daniel looked at her steadily, replying, "Because in that moment it was the only way to protect you. He needed to believe you weren't alone." She stared at him, astonished, and for the first time in what felt like years, a faint spark of hope flickered in her chest. And as Emma leaned forward innocently, offering the stranger half of her muffin with a smile, the woman broke down in tears, not from fear this time, but from the overwhelming kindness of a man and his little girl who had given her something she thought she had lost forever: safety. But little did Daniel know, stepping in that day would unravel secrets, dangers, and emotions far deeper than he could imagine. For the woman's past was far from ordinary, and his single act of protection would soon change both their lives forever. The cafe incident was only the beginning, because after that day, the woman, whose name was Alina, found herself drawn back into Daniel and little Emma's world, not because she asked for it, but because Daniel refused to let her walk back into danger alone. When he discovered she had been running from an abusive ex who wouldn't stop hunting her, something inside him shifted, and he offered her a safe place, not out of pity but out of a fierce belief that no one deserved to live in fear. And as days turned into weeks, Alina began to heal in the warmth of a family she never had, Emma's innocent laughter becoming a balm for her wounds, and Daniel's steady presence reminding her what it meant to be valued. Yet the man from the cafe wasn't done, and when he returned one night demanding Alina back, Daniel stood taller than ever, shielding her with the same words that had first stopped the world: "Touch my wife again and you'll regret it." This time, though, Alina's hand gripped his, her trembling gone, her eyes full of courage, because she finally believed him, not just his words but the promise behind them, that she was safe, loved, and home.